I was the perfect age for the debut of Pokemon to grab my attention, so when the trading card game came out, I had to get them. Even in 1995, we all knew that the first edition cards would become valuable, but none of us understood exactly how valuable. During the pandemic lockdowns, the Pokemon TCG exploded in popularity, and the value of certain cards grew in accordance. Now, almost 3 decades after purchase, I finally decided to send some of my cards in to be graded. In this batch is a mix of classic and modern Pokemon cards, as well as Lorcana Enchanted cards. The first card was a full-art Ivysaur from the English 151 set. The centering looked good, and the edges seemed clean and without blemish. A quick look at the back didn't reveal any major concerns. PSA deemed this one a Gem Mint 10, which is worth about $78 as of the making of this video. It was a strong start. Moving on, we encountered the second card of the batch, a full-art Charmeleon, also from 151. I honestly didn't scrutinize these cards too much prior to sending them in. The more recent cards generally went straight from the pack into sleeves. The Charmeleon was also a Gem Mint 10 and should go for about $97. The next card was a first edition Sabrina's Gengar from Gym Challenge. It is one of the more sought-after sets because the print runs were lower in volume compared to its predecessor. The centering of the card looked decent, without any major blemishes. This non-holographic rare came in at a PSA 9, and thus is worth around $145. The Neo series of cards is about where my initial interest in Pokemon cards started to taper off, but I was able to pull a holographic Raikou from an unlimited Neo Revelation booster pack. The card's borders on the left and bottom are noticeably thicker, and so it wasn't a surprise that it got a 7. However, the value of this card as a 10 is very high, thus a 7 would still go for about $81. Here we have a first edition Brock's Ninetales from Gym Challenge. The card's front centering is biased to the left, and the back is similarly biased to the right, but the vertical orientations look symmetrical. PSA graded this one a 9, which makes it a $113 card on the open market. The last card in this first box was a first edition base set Wartortle. A few of this uncommon card exists out there with a print error where the evolution thumbnail shows a Wartortle instead of a Squirtle. Sadly, it is not this card. Still, this is a PSA 9 card, which means it is worth about $170. The bulk of the cards I sent in to be graded are in this second box, and right off the bat we're looking at a first edition Red Cheeks Pikachu from the base set. A PSA 10 of this common card commands an astronomical $3,879 on the account of there being 2 versions of this card, one with red cheeks and the other with yellow cheeks. This particular Pikachu was graded a PSA 9, meaning that it is a $575 card. Another Wartortle was next, also a first edition card from the base set. The centering of this card is pretty uneven all around, and the corners are not in the best condition, so it's not too surprising that it is a PSA 7 card. Even so, it remains fairly valuable, coming in at $66. Spoiler alert, I have 6 total base set Pikachu cards in this batch of graded cards, and here we have the first edition Yellow Cheeks version. It's pretty crazy that a common card could fetch over $1,000 as a PSA 10. In this case, however, this one got a 9, which makes it worth around $241. The 10th card was another Red Cheeks Pikachu. The centering is biased to the left and right on the front and back respectively, and I suspect the reason why it was also graded a 9. When I looked through my collection, I was surprised to find so many first edition cards. Young me definitely deserves a pat on the back for putting up another $575 on the board. The first Enchanted Lorcana card makes an appearance. Cards of this rarity are difficult to pull from the newly released trading card game, anywhere between 1 in 72 to 96 packs. The gacha gods were definitely smiling on me, since this was graded a PSA 10, which today is a $323 card. I pulled this Enchanted Morph card from my first Inklands expansion booster box. When this card was first announced, it caused a bit of excitement, considering its utility in the Lorcana game itself. Graded a PSA 10, this card recently sold on eBay for $300. Going back to Pokemon, here's a Sabrina's Alakazam from Gym Challenge. This card also shares a centering bias to the left with a few of the cards we've looked at already. Perhaps it is something common to all Pokemon cards from that era. It is also a first edition holo card, which helps it jump in value to $183 as a PSA 9 card. This Pokemon Gym Leader is also a streamer, which helped her become one of the more popular characters from Scarlet and Violet. This popularity bleeds over into the card game, where even this ultra-rare rarity card can fetch a pretty penny. At a PSA 10, it is worth around $60 right now. Impressive. This Sabrina's Alakazam helps illustrate the difference in price between first edition and unlimited cards. Its centering is decent, perhaps a bit too thick on the top border. At the same grade as its first edition sibling, it is worth $86, representing a 53% drop in valuation. Still, it is a good one with a great grade, considering it is a 24-year-old card. I recall pulling this first Chapter Enchanted card from one of 5 packs I bought from Target. The first set from Lorcana has just recently experienced its first collective price jump since its release, and so the numbers from price charting haven't settled yet. So far, a few Mint 9 cards have sold, and placed the average price at $430. I was fortunate enough to be able to jump on a really good online clearance deal on starter decks from the first Lorcana expansion, since each of them came with a booster. Out of one of those packs came this Madam Mim Enchanted card. PSA deemed it to be a Gem Mint 10, which means that right now it is probably around a $180 card, considering it goes for $90 ungraded. Next was my third Red Cheeks Pikachu. I think this one would have been a contender for being graded a 10 if it was better centered towards the top and the right. As it is, PSA believes this to be a 9, giving me 3 cards of this grade and another $575. I got back into collecting trading cards just in time for the release of 151, with which the Pokemon Company definitely milked the nostalgia factor. It is also a fairly difficult set to pull from, considering its set list of over 200 cards, not including all of the reverse holofoil variants. This illustration rare Wartortle was graded a PSA 10, giving it a $90 valuation. I pulled the Chase card from the Paldean Fates expansion from a box of mini tins, which was surprising. Charizard cards are almost always highly desirable, and this EX variant with a Dark Terra type is no different. It also came out of the pack in excellent condition, garnering a Gem Mint 10 grade. As of right now, it is a $286 card. Charizard is also a chase card for the 1-5-1 expansion, and I was able to pull one from an Elite Trainer box. If you stack all 3 art cards from the Evolution series on top of one another, it forms a single vertical illustration. I noticed the marred top edge before sending it in, so I was expecting a lower grade than the 8 that PSA gave this now $90 card. We follow that card up with the basic Pokemon from the Evolution line, Charmander. Ash's Charmander was introduced in the 11th episode of the cartoon, as part of a sad storyline reminiscent of the tale of Hachiko. This illustration rare card was deemed to be a Gem Mint 10, meaning that it is currently worth about $126. It's hard to believe that the base set of Pokemon came out over 25 years ago. This uncommon first edition Arcanine might be older than some of you. The card itself has centering bias to the left like a lot of other cards in this video, and thus contributing to it receiving a grade of 9. So, while not a $600 card, it is still a very respectable $148. We have 3 cards remaining, and this is a Charizard from 151 I pulled from an ultra premium collection, which certainly made its purchase worth it. The centering of the card leans closer to the right, which means that it is a PSA 9 card. Unfortunately, this meant that I missed getting all 3 cards from the Evolution line as PSA 10 cards, but don't expect any tears considering a PSA 9 is $113. The penultimate card is a first edition Yellow Cheeks Pikachu. The Yellow Cheeks represent most of the copies of this card you will see in the wild, as the Red Cheeks variant was a mistake present in the earliest of base set prints. Even so, a PSA 10 Yellow Cheeks Pikachu can fetch up to $1,250. This copy came in at an 8.5, meaning that it is north of the $135 that a regular 8 would be worth. Finally, the 26th and last card is another Red Cheeks Pikachu. This is the 4th that I own, and all of the previous 3 were PSA 9 cards, which exceeded my expectations. A PSA 10 here would mean over $3,000 as mentioned before. It is a PSA 9, which is very cool. All in all, I sent in 26 cards at a cost of $437, and the total value of all of them is at least $5,500 for a potential gain of $5,000 or more. You can get a closer look at these cards on the online store. I have more cards in the pipeline for grading, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more from GachaIRL.